All right, everybody, so welcome back to another episode of Colton Posey Fishing. So today we're going to be talking about a technique, I guess you could say, or kind of like a strategy for this time of year. And it's going to work on whether you're on a river system, whether you're on a lake. It doesn't really matter wherever you are in the country. This strategy works, especially in the fall and spring, anytime the fish are migrating, because they're going to come to you and then they're going to back out, and then you're going to have fresh fish coming to you consistently as you go to the lake. So stay tuned. This is something you don't want to miss. All right, guys, so jumping into it, I want to talk about pinch points. And you know, if you're not new to the channel, you've heard me refer to this term or this strategy, I guess you could say. But that is an area where your lake narrows down and then goes back to an area like behind me here. As you can see, you know, we've got a pocket that goes back to the back of this creek, and then we've also got another pocket that goes back to this side of the creek. And those areas is where these fish are going to migrate to and from during the fall, during the spring, whatever. Y'all might hear this bird in the background hollering. He's mad at me. But you know, either way, they're going to migrate in and out of these areas throughout the fall, throughout the spring. So you know, you'll be able to move in and out of these areas consistently, catching fresh fish and fish that have been there maybe year round. Maybe they're, you know, residential fish. So what are these fish doing that are migrating? They're chasing bait fish. That's 90% of the game this time of year. These fish are going to be chasing bait fish. Now, this does not mean that these fish are not eating brim, they're not eating crawfish, or any other, you know, organisms or whatever may be in your lake for those fish to feed on. But the main thing that they're going to be feeding on is shad, whether that's threadfin, whether that's blueback herring, which typically if you're on a blueback herring lake, you're not really going to have, you know, these fish that are pushing herring back up in creeks and stuff like that. But you will have fish that are pushing blueback herring in pockets and chasing them on the main lake. So you're still going to have a lot of fish, you know, on the main lake, which is great. But whether you're on a blueback herring lake or not, you're still going to find fish on the main. You're going to find fish in the creeks. You're going to find fish in pockets. Now, the toughest thing can be figuring out whether the fish are active or not. So we run into this up on Guntersville Lake, and this is something I want to bring to y'all's attention. We were finding tons of shad, whether that was threadfin shad, gizzard shad, it didn't really matter. We were finding tons of bait for these fish to eat. But the lake has been so pressured that there just wasn't really, it was really hard to find any fish. Like, I mean, they wasn't just like grouped up. They wasn't really that spread out. They were just like few and far between. Now, I will say this is when, you know, the Spro Frog tournament and all that stuff's going on. So, you know, you've got, I think it was like 390 boats. And then, you know, you had all your local tournaments. Then you had, you know, just kayakers that were having a tournament up there, and then just your pleasure fishermen and pleasure boaters and stuff. So, you know, it was a really tough day. It was a great day to be on the lake, and that's one thing I want to talk to y'all about in the fall. This is one of the best times to go and catch tons of fish, but you are going to have extremely rough days. Now, what I mean by extremely rough days is you're going to have days where, you know, you show up and you're just going to be, it's like no matter what you do, you can do nothing wrong. You're catching fish how you want to catch fish. You're catching fish everywhere you go. They're very, very active. Then you're going to have days where it's kind of like it seems like all the fish have left. There is no fish in this lake or river, whatever you may be fishing. Don't get discouraged. And always remember, it's okay if you have a bad day on the water, because, you know, if you had great days on the water every time you went, they wouldn't be so great to begin with. And it will challenge you to try new baits, try new areas, cover new water and stuff like that. So, you know, don't be afraid to do that. But either way, pinch points, like I said, is an area where, you know, if you know of a creek that goes back like this one I'm talking about here, and you know, the shad migrate in it, the bass migrate in it and stuff like that. The pinch point is going to be an area where it narrows down, and every fish that's traveling to the back is going to have to stop. So finding that area, bridges are great. Bridges, there's tons of lakes that have, you know, a lot of bridges, like Guntersville, for example. There's tons of bridges on Guntersville, and these fish, to get to the backs of these creeks and the backs of these pockets, they're going to have to travel through that area where that bridge is. So, you know, if that makes sense, you've got this expansive water, you know, maybe some creek arms and stuff like that, maybe some pockets. But You've got an area where it narrows down that they have to go through to get to the back. You're going to consistently have fish migrating to and from that area. Okay, and you will have a lot more fish migrating to than from, especially at the beginning of fall. But you know, when they start making their way back out in that winter transition, when they're transitioning from, you know, the fall bite all the way to winter, and they're moving back out to their winter haunts where they was during the summer, you can still catch those fish there. So that area is always going to have fish on it. Now here's the thing, a lot of people find these areas, and when they find these areas, these fish get beat up. They get caught a lot and they catch on pretty quick, and you have to downsize and use different techniques and stuff like that to get these fish fired up and get them ready to bite. And that's the thing, once you figure out exactly like what they want to eat, then it's very, very simple. And always, like I say, always keep your stuff natural. Always keep your stuff natural this time of year, because these fish have saw stuff all spring, they saw it all summer, they've seen it most of the fall. These fish are getting pressured. And the cool thing is too, though, you're also going to run into fish that have not been pressured that much, because in my opinion, live scopes kind of helped with the shallow water bite. In my opinion, a lot of these fish that seem like used to, the reason I used to do so good on my home lake is because I knew how to use my 2D sonar to get in an area, find fish and catch fish. And a lot of people wasn't doing that. There was people doing that, but not a whole lot of people. Most people are going down the bank, beating the bank, and there's nothing wrong with that. I do that now. But you know, with the live scope, I'm starting to see a lot more people out on the main or just in the channel chasing nomadic fish and stuff. And you know, me personally, I don't like doing that, and those fish a lot of times can become very, very hard to catch. Just like up here on the lake that I'm at right now, a lot of the fish that's on the main lake, they're kind of aggravating to catch because they've been pressured so much. So you got to downsize everything or try to mimic exactly what they're eating to the T to get these fish to bite, especially the fall rate and stuff like that. You got to make the baits look as natural as possible. Now, I'm not saying when you move to the bank, you're not going to have to, you know, make stuff look as natural as possible, but you can play around with multiple presentations. There's a lot more fish closer to the banks and relating to stuff that's more typical that we expect in the fall. So either way, guys, I hope pinch points that I guess you'd call it kind of like a little seminar or whatever, but I hope that helps you, and let me know down in the comments if it does. I love hearing from you guys. And also, you know, if the videos helps you at all, make sure to like, subscribe. It helps me out a whole lot. Don't forget my video sponsors, you know, Salty Captain, Thunderhawk Lures, they help me a whole lot. It's companies that I believe in and companies that believe in me, and that helps a whole lot. It helps me provide content to you guys. You guys help me provide content to you guys, and I really appreciate it. Don't forget the Colton Posey Fishing merch store is now open. Check that out. $25 shipped to your door. We got members only, also $2 a month. You get my content exclusively early, and you get to ask your questions early. Either way, guys, I really appreciate y'all. I'll see you next time.